one last chance we have to leverage this situation. Um, being down in the South, I've experienced where ultimately Reefer Madness came from, which is ultimately a sort of polarizingly different opinion from like what I saw in South Africa. In South Africa, it was extremely illegal, extremely punishable, but extremely okay. Everyone was growing it, everyone was smoking it, everyone was doing it, and it was very low grade, 60s quality, stemmy swaggy style. So no one was getting that stupid from it. But if you think about how the Jim Crow laws and Reefer Madness got implicated by the variables of circumstantial prejudice against marijuana, which is ultimately where the Class 1 rationalization for marijuana came into play, principalized by ultimately some of the most retarded prejudicial variables, especially in consideration that many of the old school hemp growers, which was a phenomenal industry, used to, smoke their pirate's tobacco from time to time as well. Naturally, indulgent in a calming and anti-anxiety pill, if you will. Something which didn't deliver cancer the same way nicotine, tobacco, and all those crops have done. But, the hemp stuff, you can boil it down to some oil, you can do some other stuff that's much subtle. The modern medical industry has amped up the quality size to a point into which is unthinkable. Actually rationalizing it as a Class 1, unfortunately. Still in the comparison based on the lack of capacity to really OD from it, but still a dangerous substance to one's progress in life. In this pandemic, we've seen individuals with problems that still have good sources ODing in a sense of insanity, boredom, and lonesomeness, which wouldn't have happened without this pandemic being valid. Creating a quarantine, creating a psychological disposition of, just not having enough social contact. So, in my opinion, now more than ever, could we thrust somewhat of an emergency-like implication for the legalization from a federal standpoint so that the Southeast, the principal demoter of the modern medical and recreational movements we've seen started out west and now progressing very much so in the Northeast, ultimately capable of really rationalizing itself in a principal interest not only to degrade the black markets at a point into which they've been badly degraded through the quarantine itself, but also to give people that vice, that loner vice, to de-stress, to meditate, to think outside of the world they live in, to think about the world, things, and the lacking material variables, which are the lack of material necessities as opposed to spiritual ones. So, when we don't get past this pandemic and the quarantine re-rationalizes itself in the millions of millions, maybe even the tens of millions cases by next September-ish, maybe, just maybe, my parody of having a teal bandana, social, socially incorrect mask on. That's the plan. It's going to be a teal bandana that says socially incorrect over my Reagan mask. To rectify the 420 bill in a manner unto which gets absolutely passed. The states no longer have to cling to modernizing certain things. Local communities can derationalize recreation all they want for mass production, but criminalizing marijuana from that point forward will never be along the lines of what is to be sought after by anything more than friends and family and local communities promoting or depromoting the use, overuse, or very subtle necessitative use of medical and or recreation ideas which take people outside of a bottle of Colt 45 and into a Bob Marley joint. Now, the reason I bring up the Colt 45 is because of that song, staring down the barrel of a 45, drunk as hell, wishing they weren't alive. Only to smoke a Bob Marley joint, so big and so fat, you'll never ever ever want to be thinking that.